You're watching Sri Lanka's #1 sports hub, www.thepapare.com. It's Christmas Eve, and we are here with a very special edition where we speak about Sri Lankan rugby. Schools rugby is back, and it's been an incredible past weekend with Dialog Rugby Schools Sevens happening. And to chat about rugby being back and rugby coming back to the island, schools rugby rather coming back to the island, I have a very special guest with me from Auckland, New Zealand, World Rugby coach, trainer, educator, and also creator of Safe Tackle Framework. Boa Athu joining us. Boa, Merry Christmas to you. As you may know, it's Christmas in New Zealand. I hope you are having a wonderful time with your family and friends and enjoying your Christmas.
I am indeed. I am indeed. First of all, let me wish all the viewers of the Papare.com and the Papare Rugby and this show and previous shows a bit of a different format this year. So a very Merry Christmas, a very safe Christmas to you all. Things are good here. I've just been helping myself with some Christmas cake, so hopefully not too much of it. I have to watch my weight. But really, really excited. And wow, what a weekend of Sevens rugby. I have to say, pleasantly surprised as well. I did anticipate that some of the teams may struggle with a bit of fitness and conditioning. But the reality was we saw some very high quality Sevens rugby and also some really good team as well as individual performances, which makes really good viewing as well as some good potential talent for the future.
Oh, absolutely, Bo. I think all of us were thrilled to see schools rugby back. And like you mentioned, we did expect the teams to be a little bit rusty coming into the field, but most of the teams hit the ground running. They were absolutely brilliant, and they looked like they were in cohesion, like they never stopped playing rugby, which is brilliant to see. Now, as we all know, as you very closely followed as well, we had 2 days of rugby for Western Province, with segment B playing on Saturday and segment A playing on Sunday. Now let's talk about segment B a little bit. Any player that caught you or any particular team that caught your eye in that segment B? Boy, personally for me, I thought the Benedicts, although they didn't come into the final light, they did look like the most structured team out of the 10 teams that played. Whereas the champions Piliandala Central were brilliant in this fact that they had more experience and exposure in the game and they used it to good effect.
I think, look, all teams again pleasantly surprised me. I did watch most of the rugby as well, and for a segment B competition, I thought we saw some really good structure and continuity, particularly around the ruck area where teams didn't throw the ball away, they didn't give up possession easily. They recycled. The ruck recycle was really good. And of course, we saw some very talented, eye-catching players, and I'm sure some of the top-tier teams would have been eyeing them up as well. You know what I'm talking about. But look, St. Benedict's, I thought there's a few players in Carey College who played really well. But no question, I think Leandala Central were outstanding, particularly their winger. Boy, he had some real wheels on. He's the boy with the jet shoes. Soon as he hits the turbos, it's game over. And again, they're a team which showed a lot of flair, a lot of X factor. I think that's what makes them so exciting. And it was edge of the seat stuff, so well deserved. And I think all teams, we've got to give credit where credit's due. They've prepared really well. They came out to play some sevens. So despite it being what we call the B segment, it was very entertaining, good high quality rugby. Most importantly, it was intelligent rugby where they looked like they've actually thought what they were going to do. They turned up on game day and they executed.
Yes, you're right, Bo. I think most of us were pleasantly surprised at the quality of rugby that these boys dished out. The only thing that we could maybe marginal out, which was also negligible, was the fact that they were sometimes looking for contact. And who can you blame 19-year-olds who've been cooped up for 2 years for wanting some action going against each other? So now that was the B division competition. Let's go into the A division competition, Boa. 12 top schools in the Western Province going against each other. There were a lot of expectations, but I think it's fair to say it was DS Naika College who took the cake. We thought it was a one-off when they beat St. Joseph's in the first match, but they turned out to be absolute giant killers, beating Isipatana. And whenever you beat Isipatana in a tournament of this stature, especially when it's sevens, that means you're there to do business. And in the semi-final, I thought they were very unlucky to lose to St. Peter's, but they went on to beat Royal College at home in the plate final to cap off a terrific tournament. We'll talk a little more about the SNR Naika College's performance. I know you had a very keen eye on them. From what we saw at the grounds, what worked for DSNR Naika College was the fact that they did the little things right. They had perfected the little things, and everybody knew their role. They knew what they had to execute, and they did it brilliantly. What were your thoughts on DS?
Yeah, look, first of all, massive congrats to DS. For once, I actually saw a side who have been coached to do simple basics right. They actually turned up for the game time and they did it. And they kept their discipline, particularly in the ruck area. They also maintained their body position in the ruck really well. They didn't go off their feet and they held their position really well. They didn't panic. So this is a hallmark of a side which has been really well coached. And also, they've probably done a bit of work off the field in the classroom and figured out where players get involved in what sort of play. And in fact, there was one try I thought, I think it was against Isipatana, where they actually went the length of the field. They went side to side. They recycled and secure ruck ball. I think it was something like 16 phases. And then when the gap opened in midfield, they went under the post. So again, to me, that's real patience. And like you said, everyone understanding their job, doing the little things right. And of course, when you return to play after such a long time, um, you got to do your preparation right in difficult situations and circumstances. So to me, it clearly showed that they've really thought how to prepare. They've gone and done it, and they've focused on some really simple areas where most teams get let down. So I thought they were very unlucky not to beat the eventual winners, who are easily the most experienced and most explosive side in the tournament, which was St. Peter's. But again, St. Joseph's, Isipatan, and to beat Royal at Jurassic Park. That's right, at home. Tremendous achievement, and it shows that it's no flash in the pan. So, well done to DS. Love the work they've done. Brilliant coaching, backroom work there by their support staff, and I hope they can take the same form line into the 15s and season pro.
Oh, absolutely. Congratulations to uh, Coach Asel as well for grooming these youngsters to be a real force to be reckoned with. When they beat St. Joseph's, some of us thought, okay, this is going to be the big upset, but then they kept on giving, and if not for that slight hiccup in the semi-final, they would have made the final as well. That would have been absolutely brilliant for DS Rugby, and it's one of those stories that you can take out to the rest of the island as well. If you do the small things right, you will get the results, and you can beat any team on the field of sevens. And let's move on to we spoke about teams exceeding expectations, but when you wear a green jersey, when you go for a sevens tournament in the schools arena in Sri Lanka, and when you wear that AC Patanu crest on your chest, there is a certain expectation that comes with it. Isipatana does not expect anything other than their team to be absolutely successful in the tournament. And this tournament, Isipatana did not deliver the goods. That is after a long time. I can't remember the last time Isipatana were knocked out from a knockout quarter final maybe. But this was the first time in a long time Isipatana went away with no silverware to show for. What were your thoughts on Isipatana? Why do you think it didn't work out for them?
Yeah, look, that this is always a risk and danger of what you call a short run competition. It was a single day competition, and every game counts. You can't afford to have even the slightest of slip ups. So I think where the green jerseys kind of lacked or fell apart was they looked like they hadn't prepared as well. They just didn't have that cohesion, and they just needed some time together as a team. As I said, in a short competition, you don't have that luxury. You got to turn up from the very first minute, make sure that you do everything. One thing I have to say, Sudarshan, is part of me says that uh, I'm just glad to see rugby start, regardless of who won or lost. But you're right, particularly with their fans, the burden of expectation is so huge. Every time Isipatan run out, they expect them to win, and they expect to win by a good margin, particularly in sevens rugby. And of course, the one key area for me was the error rate. They did make some fundamental errors in very straightforward situations, and also the ruck recycle. Because if you look at the teams who did really well in the competition, they were very disciplined in the ruck. They maintained their feet. They didn't go off their feet, and they recycled the ball really well. And of course, whenever you recycle ball and when you hang on to the ball, eventually the opposition will make a mistake. That's when you pounce on it. So I think that's kind of where Isipatan let themselves down. And another fact I need to point out, this is pretty much with most teams in the competition, they did lack the ability to kick and get territorial advantage. So again, in conditions where it's quite warm and you're just returning to play after almost a couple of years, you have to be smart in your game management. I think all those factors went against Isipatan, and all in all, disappointing, but I've no doubt they'll bounce back. And I'm a huge fan of Papare rugby. I mean, I have a lot of peers and former clubmates who I've played with Isipatanians, and I know what their attacking prowess is. So I think they'll just put a line straight through this, and it's a bitter pill for them to swallow. But they'll be back bigger and better in the 15s and season.
Oh, there is absolutely no doubt that the green machine will be in absolute full force come the next season. But like you mentioned, I think the spectators and most importantly, the 2021, the class of 2021 would have been absolutely thrilled at the fact that they got some rugby to crow about in the coming years. Now, another team that didn't actually deliver the goods or had massive expectations was the home team, Royal College. Royal, when they played the opening match against Anand, and they wowed a lot of people because they seem to be forming very deep. They seem to be using the width of the field. They knew every inch of that field. Playing at Royal Complex. What went wrong for Royal? Particularly something that we noticed in the com box. I was sitting next to a former Royal captain Abdullah Yusuf, who was slightly frustrated. Tried very hard not to show it at the fact that Royal couldn't get out of jail. They absolutely did not have an exit plan, and that is something that we thought came back to bite them in the knockout stage, the latter part of the tournament.
Yeah, look, no question. Yeah, you're right. I did hear Abdullah's frustration on comms in the broadcast. I mean, Abdullah was my former captain back in 1997 at college. Yeah, look, with Royal, they certainly looked like a team who had prepared. They looked fit, they looked strong, some big lads as well. And that first game against Anand, they looked impressive. But the reality, again, is, uh, you know, it comes down to game management. And what Royal did wrong was they played far too much rugby in the wrong part of the field, particularly in sevens rugby. It's very difficult. Uh, you know, coming into a tournament after almost a 2-year lapse to be able to continually play running rugby from your own goal line. And I think this is one hallmark of Royal Rugby. Even you see this in 15s. Uh, don't get me wrong, they're very good at it, but in sevens, all you need to do is make a couple of mistakes and you give possession right back to the opposition. So they were very predictable in that sense. And of course, they couldn't really get any territorial advantage. So again, coming back to your kicking game, kicking the ball out of your hand, very, very important. In fact, they did do that once against St. Thomas's. They forced a 5-meter scrum and they scored. I think they didn't kind of learn fast enough So no doubt they'd be disappointed. And you're right. They had home advantage. They had a great side. They've got some great players. So some learnings need to be done. They've got to kind of move away from that predictability. And of course, in sevens, you want to try and create space for your men on the outside. So you can put the faster guys into space, make use of that real estate. So they didn't probably do that well enough. But that again comes down to tactical execution. And it was, let's keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And unfortunately, if you keep doing the same thing, you will get the same result. But again, I don't want to be too harsh on this because it's returned to play after almost a couple of years. We all know what Royal can do when they flex their muscles, particularly at home at Jurassic Park, because they are the reigning champions. And again, it's it's a result they'll just want to completely flush out, forget about. And much like Patana, I think they will be really revving and amped up, eager to put this loss behind them and come back with a vengeance in the 15s.
Now, Boa, talking about Royal not looking for exit strategy and playing too much rugby in their own half, but this was not a problem in the opening couple of games. Do you think the fatigue that comes into play did affect their decision making, even though they were taking the same risk in the earlier games, but come the latter games, that was something affected that Royal College?
Yeah, look, it's like this, Sudarshana. When the competition stiffens, when the intensity steps up, everything just becomes that much harder. It's kind of like running a race in a rural setting where you're running against very average competitors, and you look great. Soon as you have to step it up and you come to the city big leagues, you're running against faster runners. It's a different ball game. So I think that's where the clear cut difference was. Of course, against the better teams, they're better organized. They've figured out what their defensive patterns are. And as I said, I was really surprised at how well some of these teams were prepared. I don't know, maybe they've been training in secret behind some closed curtain, but it certainly looked like they put the work. They really thought about what they were doing, and they just came out to prove a point. So again, if it's not working, you've got to change things around. And that happens in two folds. One is the experience, and of course, the other side is how much of a push you're going to get from your coaching staff. So you kind of mix both together, get the right formula, and particularly at halftime, because you only get a very short turnaround in sevens. You got to get those messages on board, and the players need to step up then and change what they're doing. So I think there's probably a bit of breakdown there. But at the same time, you have to give credit to all the other teams because, from a tactical point of view, they were far superior. And when it came to actually executing those tactics, particularly in defense, where they were getting those turnovers, where they were getting the jackals over the ball, winning the turnover, they were very good. So, as I say again, in sevens, you only get a little bit of breathing space. In a short tournament, you cannot afford to drop your intensity. If you do, you pay the price. In Royal's case, they paid a very heavy price.
Well, it was a little more personal as well for Royal because they paid the price in the semi-final to their arch rival St Thomas's. It was Royal Tomian in the Cup semis and St Thomas's Boa versus another team that commanded notice from a lot of the spectators who enjoyed this tournament. St Thomas's, we are used to seeing St Thomas's having good teams in after a long, long time, and this St. Thomas's Sevens outfit looked like they were something else. They looked like they were coming from Isipatan. There were some boys who were there were a couple of boys who were over 6 feet, Goa, and that team looked like they were gelling well as well. And St. Thomas's is going to be a force to be reckoned with come the 15th.
No question, great signs. Look, there were a couple of guys, I think the center, Hettiarachi. He looked like Papare who had spinach for breakfast, and the amount of energy he had was fantastic. One of the key things I have to make mention with the Thomians is now their coach Shamli Nawaz. Shamli is someone who I know very well. We've been arch rivals, particularly when we were playing schools first 15 and also club with CR and CH. Uh, you know, he's a great competitor, and I think he's brought that attitude and competitive spirit to this team. From a technical point of view, what I really loved about St. Thomas's was their tackle technique. Now, they use a tackle technique called the chop tackle. So, what a chop tackle is a good old fashioned, uh, textbook tackle where the tackler goes around the waist, in between the waist and knee, the muscly, fleshy thigh area, and you really drive the ball carrier backwards. And of course, they did this in pairs. So, it's what you call chop tackle and jackal. Jackal, as you know, is man straight over the ball where tackles being made, and the ball carrier has to place the ball down on the ground. Then the jackler goes over to steal the ball. So this whole chop tackle jackal technique, Shamli has really taught the Stormian side really well. And clearly they've done their homework. They've done the practice. They've probably looked at a few videos. They've really figured out who is going to be their jackler, and they kept their discipline. So for me, I absolutely loved what they did because, as you know, safe tackle framework, which is something I've been working with World Rugby for a few years now, and it focuses on a safe tackle height or a safe entry into a tackle. So I hope all other schools were watching this, all other coaches, particularly referees, was actually watching this. And I think we need to encourage more, if not all teams, to tackle around that waist area. So, we create the game we create the game so that it's a safe and effective game. So for me, that was the single biggest highlight from St. Thomas's. And of course, they look really fit. They look like they've done the preparation, they've done their homework. And after a very long time, it was nice to see a hungry St. Thomas's team who had the right attitude. And I thought they were very, very unlucky not to go all the way.
Oh, absolutely. I think the Thomians were incredible. And like you mentioned, that tackle technique, that's something that we mentioned even in the commentary as well. It was very nice to see them going back to that traditional way of going around the waist. And they, I think, proved the fact that you don't need to bear hug players and go for that bear hug tackle in order to restrict the ball carrier from offloading. If you do time it right, and if you go tackle in the correct area, and if your line speed is good, you're going to get the desired result. And the Thomians absolutely played brilliantly, especially defensively. And I think they did not really have a choice with their coach being such a fierce third rower and known for his dead mark tackles as well. Now, St. Thomas's came into the cup finals, beating Royal College. They had a real good chance, but on the other side were the Pete Wrights, the wily old fox, son of Marty's, the veteran coach. The Pete Wright team had more experience. The Pete Wright team had been in that situation more times than not. They knew the pressure. They knew how to handle the pressure, and they absorbed everything in the first half against St. Thomas's, unleashed it in the second, and they went all the way. Well, let's talk about St. Peter's and their performances. It was very measured, Boa. There was not we didn't see fascinating rugby by St. Peter's, but they played very effective rugby.
I think the key or the secret formula for them was game management. And as I said, in a short tournament, you got to manage your resources and your players really, really well. And that's what St. Peter's did. And of course, they had a lot of experience. And if you looked at how they defended, they just used a very effective drift defense. So it's what we call a jockey, where they actually jockey the ball carrier to the sideline and they hold their defensive line very, very well. And again, when it came to game management, they knew which players to get involved in the right situation. And of course, that try in the final from Diat Fernando, that was a real game changer. For me in that final
Well,
as
that
a
actually, sorry, just to interrupt, that actually was Diat Fernando's brother, Ishan Fernando, who was running in the corner. It's very, very easy to mistake the both because Diat also had a knack for scoring the same way.
I stand corrected. Look, Diat shout out to you and Ishan. You actually did better, son. That was a classic wingers try on the outside, and you beat a very resolute Tomian defense. So again, coming back to St. Peter's, they used the experience and they knew where to play the percentage rugby. They knew where to throw all their resources and intensity when the opportunity was there. So for me, it was just real smart rugby. And keep in mind, St. Peter's were lightly tested or lightly raced when they came into the sim because they did get a walkover from Prince of Wales and they played Science. Science was a very, very tricky assignment. But again, they used rugby smarts, rugby IQ, and they got around that very cleverly. And it was a very systematic build up. It's what we call a progressive form line. So, from a planning point of view and execution point of view, that's how you do it. And again, it goes back to preparation, your homework. Clearly, these boys have been well drilled, they've been well prepared, much like the other teams. So it was great to see. And for me, there was two clear cut moments, particularly in that final. Of course, young Mr. Fernando, his try, that he set the turf alight. And just before half time, St. Peter's just got their nose in front. It was a little offload on the far left hand corner. It was a short ball onto one of their bigger forwards, and he hit that ball at pace and he was put into open space. And he didn't rush, he held his line, waited for support, waited for the faster runners to come in. Then he gets the offload. And again, that shows maturity, it shows patience, it shows understanding your role. And more than anything else, I think really good preparation. So well done, St. Peter's. Easily the smartest. And as you said, they didn't try to overdo things. It was well measured. And that's how you win sevens competition.
Perfect. And St. Peters did not have it easy when it came to the semi-final. There were nervy moments. DS pushed them to the limit, and like you said, it was that doing little things right and absorbing the pressure and releasing it at the correct moment, time management, winning that small moments got them the trophy. Now, clearly, Boa, you've had a very very keen eye on this entire tournament, this final as well. Now, something that I've struggled with, I struggled with on the mic as well. That particular yellow card that was awarded to St. Thomas's player. Now, that was something we all struggled. Was there a penalty? No, in my opinion, but that's my opinion. Referee obviously saw an infringement, which is why he offered the yellow card. But something lacking there was the fact that there was no signal as to why this penalty was awarded. Why do you think that penalty was awarded? Was that a penalty, and why do you think that was awarded?
Well, clearly there's two of us. I believe there was no infringement. And again, it wasn't very clear. And look, I've been a huge critic of this whole yellow card business. I think there's just far too many cards being handed out, like an insurance salesman handing out business cards. And in the game of sevens, a yellow card is quite debilitating, and it can be a fatal blow. So I feel bad for St. Thomas's or any team who gets a yellow card. But rather than trying to pick this whole thing apart, because we've seen quite a bit of that happen in international rugby, I'm not so sure that the local referees will appreciate that. Next thing I'll have to deal with a whole lot of emails. But the point I'd like to hit home is that communication is really important. If a referee makes a call, it's always wise to explain, saying, "Look, this is what happened." So, for example, if there was a intentional knockdown, you blow your whistle and say, "Look, it was an intentional knockdown. You had no chance to catch the ball. Instead, you just killed the ball, slapped it down. Therefore, that's clear foul play. I'm going to give a yellow card." Now, that didn't take 10 seconds. That was a very clear, very simple explanation. So, to me, yeah, there was a big question mark whether that was a penalty, and I think there's a few penalties back to back to back, and that really killed and stifled the momentum of the game. And from from a rugby fan's point of view, we always want to have a decent contest. We want to have a fair contest. As soon as you start dishing out infringements and cards, it sort of ruins it for everyone. So for me, that was a bit of a blight, a bit of a sour point. And all the more credit because in the final, St. Thomas's, basically they came within 2 points, and the winning, losing, or forcing the game into extra time came down to that last conversion. So I think despite of that, congratulations to both sides. It was an absorbing contest. Well done to the boys from Mount Lavinia. Equally, or if not better, pat on the back for the boys from Bambalapitia. Deserved winners. It was a great game, very tight contest. And hopefully in the future, we do see more tighter contests with no yellow cards.
Oh, perfect. I think that's what everybody is hoping for as well. Now, talking about St. Thomas's and that final coming to the last few seconds of the game as well, to a conversion. Best player of the tournament was Mahit Pereira from St. Thomas's. This young lad incidentally played in the big match this year as well, the Royal Thomian. So kudos to him and congratulations to him. We hope to see much more of you in the rugby field and maybe a little bit on the cricket field as well. And Boab, overall, what were your thoughts on these 2 days of rugby, schools rugby being back after a long, long time, and Dialog as they did with Asian circuit, reviving Asian Sevens rugby, they revived schools rugby as well. What were your thoughts about this tournament?
If I were to pick one word, fantastic. Look, Dialog as always, they're the forefront. I mean, look what we're doing now. I'm 7.5 hours ahead here, sitting in my Auckland rugby lab, and we're talking about a game which happened in a different time zone. And I pretty much had the privilege of watching 2 days of full rugby, and pretty much got the entire gist of it. So this is all possible because of Dialog's intervention. They're true promoters of sport in the island nation, and also the biggest plus, or the biggest positive out of all this is that rugby has returned. Return to play is very much in motion now. We can only go forward because obviously, the virus has had its say on sports, and particularly contact sports. You have very, very strict protocols. So hopefully this galvanizes everything, and there was a big pent up amount of frustration amongst particularly schools rugby fans, and they were just hanging out with their tongues wagging, waiting for this moment. And I think it was a great advertisement for the game coming back. And I think going forward, maybe there's an appetite, maybe there's an opportunity to maybe have more than just one sevens competition, maybe where we can actually look at a circuit, because again, Sri Lanka rugby, over the last few years, they've been going on about saying that sevens is where our strength is, and judging by what we saw with these schoolboys and how well they came out to play, and of course, there's been some really good coaching happening in this space as well, as we saw with DS. So I think there's that demand, and I think we have some good quality players, because we did see some players who were physically they're quite tall, well, sturdily built, certainly a lot bigger than when I was playing school rugby. So all this means that there is a successful formula. We just got to figure out how we put it together, come up with a suitable game development plan, and how do we work this around the much looked forward to 15s or the season proper. So yeah, fantastic. But at the same time, I think some really intriguing questions have been asked as to how we can take this forward. And maybe Dialogue has some more answers.
Well, you make a very interesting point, and I don't know whether you did see this interview of the sports minister where he made a speech at the launch of Dialog Schools Rugby Sevens. He made a request to the schools association to have a tournament, basically have 3 legs. in the coming year for the schools segment, where there will be players who will dedicate themselves into sevens, which will be pretty interesting if that goes through. And like you mentioned, some of these players did look absolutely brilliant physically, and they are just 19. They are going to get stronger and bigger. And for Sri Lanka as a nation, when it comes to sevens, I think that they are going to be brilliant assets going forward as well. Now, Boa, the Western Province tournament was just the start. Uh, we have the Central Province tournament coming up, followed by the Northwestern tournament, and then you have Sabaragamo, followed by the Southern Province tournament. All these tournaments are going to be coming to all of you live and exclusively on the Papare.com and also on Dialog Television Channel 1 as well. Interesting tournament in our hands next. The Central Province tournament, there'll be 8 schools going at each other. And from what we know about the teams in the Central Province up the hills, they like to play some rugby with flair. So are you excited for the tournament?
I'm super excited. In fact, I'm looking forward to the Central Province even more than the Western Province because, based on the teams and the historical ability to shift the ball around, if you recall, Trinity were the last winners of the proper All Island Sevens tournament. So they've got a mountain of expectation. And of course, the Candy schools, they love to throw the ball around, and that's what fans want to see. They want to see tries. They want to see good continuity. And something tells me, based on what we've seen with the Colombo schools, the Candy schools would have had a very similar preparation, a very similar template. And I think this tournament is probably going to be equally, if not more exciting. And of course, keep in mind the Candy schools now have the advantage of seeing actually what happened a week prior. So, they would have made some adjustments, they would have done some fine tuning, figuring out where they can improve, learn some lessons, particularly looking at some of the top schools who didn't get the right kind of result, i.e., teams like Patana and Royal. So they would have figured out, look, this is where they fell apart. We're not going to go down that same road. We're not going to follow the same prep. We're going to make some adjustments. So all in all, I think it makes for some very exciting viewing, and we know how passionate the Candy fans are. Whenever Colombo teams go to Candy, they get a friendly banter sort of way. They get a real hard time. And over the years, we've seen the online wars between fans from Colombo and Candy. So this is going to be quite intriguing. And I think the Candy schools will want to outdo the Colombo teams and really send out a message and put down a marker for the rest of the season. And keep in mind, I know sevens and 15s are two very different types of games, two different formats. But you have to understand, looking at what happened with the Western Province teams, most of those key players in the sevens will feature in the 15. So, whilst you can't read too much into the form line, there are certain correlations, there are certain elements of that form line, they will transfer onto the 15. So, it's really important that all teams do well, more so they can bank some of these learnings, even more than winning or losing. Make sure that some of those combinations, some of those players actually understand what their roles are from a coaching point of view. They can quickly change the playbook if things aren't going to plan. So I think big weekend ahead, and something tells me the Candy schools might put on a better show than the Columbus.
Yes, I think we all hope that Candy Schools will be able to deliver that come Monday on the 27th. Keep your eyes peeled on www.thepoplar.com because we will be bringing you all the action from the hills. We know that you can't be there. It's played behind closed doors. Don't worry. We will make sure that you enjoy the game as much as you are in the ground. Goa is a testament. He's enjoyed the game. He's analyzed the game with a telecast from Auckland, New Zealand. There is a massive time difference, but that didn't stop Goa. God, thank you so much for taking time off this Christmas to chat to us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting schools rugby with you again. And we look forward to hearing from you very soon.
Thank you very much. And this Christmas, I hope all our wishes as far as schools rugby come through, and we see uninterrupted season 2022. I hope we have a very, very close competition where no one team is actually undefeated and we don't know who is going to win the competition until the last week.
Oh, well, that's a Christmas wish and a half, Boa. I think I really do hope that Santa grants you that wish, and I really do hope you've been a good boy and been on Santa's good list, because that's a wish that we can all hope for coming true. And thank you everyone for joining with us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you this Christmas Eve. It's Sudarshana Peiris signing off for the Papare.com. Make sure to catch us on the 27th. We will come to you live from Palakali Stadium, bringing you Dialog Schools Rugby Sevens. Until next time, sharing the passion.
Stay on the ball with the Papare Sports News Alerts. Don't miss out on what's happening in the world of sport. Type sports and send to 678 to register. 30 rupees per month. Conditions apply.